ladies and gentlemen, what I need you to do right about now is put your hands together for Mr. Guy Lonechild.
Tansen, good afternoon to all of the conference delegates today, and I'm so pleased to join you on behalf of our board of directors, our management and staff of the First Nations Power Authority. My name is Guy Lonechild. I have been at the helm of FMPA for approximately 11 months, and let me tell you what a real pleasure it is to be a part of the organization. It's a one-of-a-kind organization in not just Alberta and Saskatchewan, but in Canada and indeed throughout North America. We are a non-profit entity, Indigenous owned and controlled by 110 First Nations Métis communities as general members. And I'm so pleased to be here today because I'm in a unique position. Being a former leader at the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations over a decade ago or so, or I guess over 8 years ago, we had contemplated a partnership relationship with the province of Saskatchewan and Saskatchewan Power Corporation. One of the important things that we saw, we needed to be involved in the energy sector. We couldn't just continue to be consumers, that we have to turn that relationship around with the government with the province of Saskatchewan and be producers of power, producers of energy, producers of agricultural products, and many other important commodities that are part of our everyday life. I remember a very good conversation we had with representatives from the province of Saskatchewan, the Minister of Energy, and we talked about Saskatchewan as a province. We know we're heavily dependent upon food and fertilizer and fuel, but the next important commodity is our young people, and we're talking about First Nations. The 4 F's as cornerstone to building a sustainable future in provinces like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta, where a high number of our people, our young people, are growing up on reserve with unpaved roads, with substandard housing. The important aspects of building this brighter future together had to be about inclusion and including First Nations in that equation. Well, FMPA, in its very short time frame, has taken some important steps. And what is it that we do right now? We procure and we develop power projects in the province with SaskPower. I see, and this is, you're getting the goods here, you're getting it before we make the formal announcement, but I see a future for economic development corporations to be a major part of organizing what power purchase agreements and off-takers and the relationship First Nations can make with off-takers in the province of Alberta. I was talking with Sam earlier. I come from southeast Saskatchewan, where there's an abundance of natural resource wealth, mainly oil, mainly gas, and they're just spudding the first well on a geothermal project near Unger, Saskatchewan, to drill 3,400 meters deep to bring up hot water to turn power. It's important innovations like this that First Nations need to be on the forefront of, either as active investment partners, leading the development in clean, renewable energy opportunities. And I'm so happy to say that last year, or a year and a half ago or so, we entered the Alberta market. Yes, we're from Saskatchewan, but those provincial boundaries are imaginary boundaries. We have treaty boundaries. Treaty 6 goes into Alberta, comes into Saskatchewan, and we must be able to work together so that those provincial boundaries don't limit us in terms of what we can do together. Our next steps here in the Alberta market is this. We would invite somebody from the Saddle Lake Cree Nation to be a part of what's called our Alberta Advisory Committee. We envision a future where FNPA Alberta, like Saskatchewan, or like Manitoba, has its own infrastructure, which will help to create jobs, not just at the executive level, but help to create jobs and most importantly in your community. I'm so happy to be a part of this conversation today because the important plans that you have in terms of land management and developing that next step in terms of generating power is something we can talk about. We have an ongoing relationship with TransCanada Pipelines. We'd be interested in talking to you about waste heat recovery technologies. We have a number of compressor stations that are targeted for waste heat recovery opportunity. Secondly, we have a pilot project with the Cold Lake First Nation just next door. We're looking at flare gas to power generation and potentially set-asides with the Department of National Defense. We'd be willing to, and certainly so enthused about sitting down with you and your leadership at some point in time to talk about what type of set-aside opportunities most recently have come out from the Government of Canada. The infrastructure set-aside that was set aside by the Minister of Infrastructure here in Alberta is another opportunity for solar generation, wind generation, and any other type of power generation that would help to power public buildings in the province of Alberta. I think about Cold Lake, I think about Wainwright, I think about Suffield, I think about other D&D bases across the country. We would invite Saddle Lake, of course, to become a member of First Nations Power Authority. When I ran into Sam and Peter at our headquarters, our brand new headquarters in Saskatoon, they kindly invited FNP out to come and make a presentation. I don't have my PowerPoint here today, but I can send it on to Sam for sending it out to your conference delegates. But the future remains bright, I think, in this market and, of course, in Saskatchewan. You see what's happening in British Columbia, where they're setting aside up to $200 million in additional funding for Indigenous projects to be able to take flight in that province. You saw 300 megawatts of set-aside with REP Round 2 here in Alberta, which they'll be soon to be announcing in terms of who are the successful proponents for that round. And future, hopefully, Indigenous set-asides and Indigenous rounds. In Saskatchewan, we're still dealing with our initial 40 megawatts. We're soon to make an announcement on 2 projects. One would be with, actually both of them would be with Southern Saskatchewan First Nations, who would develop near the city of Regina and the city of Weyburn. And we'll learn a lot from what those 2 projects how that takes flight. For example, one will be on reserve, one will be off reserve. What are we learning from on reserve development, and what can we learn from land that's leased on private land? And what kind of attributes do these projects bring? Equity participation, workforce participation, and what can we learn from the investment potential for future projects that are that size and larger? We just finished up, and I know that there was a long 2 days here today, and I'm willing to take any kind of questions you might have of us, but we just finished up our own First Nations Power Authority forum in Saskatoon a couple of days ago. And I hope and I believe that our next year's conference will be even bigger and better at River Cree Casino on November the 21st. We're going to have that in Edmonton. But I'm looking at the growth opportunity for not just our general members as voting members who control our entity, who control FMPA, who have an annual general meeting annually to decide the future direction of FMPA, but we have a professional board. And we're actually looking at opening that up to members from not just Saskatchewan, but of course, highly encourage First Nations participation on our board from Alberta and other parts of Canada. So we have 3 board appointments expiring next year and 4 the following year. So we have actually a total of 7 board member positions for the First Nations Power Authority coming available. And to your young people, we raised money for our new scholarships. And we're looking at partnering with the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology in Edmonton And any Indigenous youth that want to look into renewable energy as a future, as a career, we fully intend on having a first launch about what that scholarship looks like through that organization. We will do so with other institutions in Saskatchewan, and we're hopeful that this is going to lead to more young people taking up the career in engineering or other types of related fields that are important to our sector. So I just want to leave you with this, that I'm so pleased to be here today. It's a dream job of mine to come here and to talk about the potential in energy, in the development of energy as an economic base for your First Nation. We're very much willing to come out and have a meeting with your leadership or your Economic Development Board, and start the dialogue about how FNPA can assist you in your endeavors for your economic development planning. We have some very capable staff that do project review along with myself on the due diligence that's required to see if there's an opportunity for a go or a no-go for a potential project. And so what do we deal with in terms of some of the technologies? I said solar, wind. We would look at geothermal technology, flare gas to power, waste heat recovery, and any other type of technologies you would deem hydro development, small hydro. But again, we're so pleased to be here today just to offer, I think, what we do as an organization, and please feel free to call me at any time. So I'll just give you my phone number as well. 306-222-7532 is my number, and Cheryl said she'll put it on the report in terms of my contact information. So thank you again, and thanks for the invite. Thank you.